Hey guys, this is just a really quick video working off of that first simple LED and resistor circuit that you did in last class. We're going to use that. And remember earlier on when we were testing using the Arduino IDE here, there was that quick program called Blink that we used as a quick test. Examples, basics, Blink, right? This was basically the Arduino code version of a quick test to show that, okay, you know, it's communicating correctly. So we're going to do that with this circuit and this sort of basic setup that you have from last week or from last class. Okay? So here is the file, more or less hooked up. I have a different COM port because I plugged it in a different Arduino board, so don't worry too much about it. And the part that we're going to use is actually just the output. Now earlier on, I had you guys basically connect a button to the D pin 13 here, right? And to basically use this to change the values that are being sent through. And as you can see, when I click on the button, this sort of first value, which correlates to D pin 13, digital pin 13, goes to high. Okay? So obviously this is sort of like the manual control. You can use this button, and there are other ways to connect things to it. But let's say you don't have that, and we are actually trying to replicate this code here. So you want it to blink 1 second on, 1 second off, and keep on looping, essentially. Right? So it's very simple. Under Firefly here, utility, there is a component called binary blink. So binary blink, if you kind of zoom in and hover over the inputs on the left, it would say blink pattern as a list. And if you read it, you know, so a blink pattern 100, 200, 300, 400. So it starts with a 0 and a 1, a 0 and a 1, and 0 is off, 1 is on, right? So if you give it a long pattern, it will basically repeat that pattern continuously. And it also says the smallest time interval that is accepted in the blink pattern is 25 milliseconds. Okay. Second, start. So it's a Boolean toggle to start and stop the blink. And repeat, yes or no. And that's also a Boolean toggle, although for some of these, if you right click on the input, you can set the Boolean directly here, especially if it's a toggle that you're not going to be changing a lot. So you'll need another sort of Boolean toggle on the outside. So once you hover over it, it'll say, oh, it's already set to true. Alright, so this is useful for those like, okay, you know, you're only just going to set it once, and this should be true by default. Okay, to set this up, we're going to need one of these guys, basically a text panel, and let's say 1000. Okay, now it comes in like this, and if you try to type that and just click outside, it doesn't take it, right? Because this actually is not a what you call a multi-line data. So data conversion from text to integer, right? So this is just text. I have to right click here and click on it, multi-line data, to make it into that, and then this will accept it correctly as two separate values instead of just text. Okay, so make sure that you do that. This is something that's easy to forget, converting it by clicking on, right clicking on it and clicking on the multi-line data sort of option. And obviously remember, you can disable these. In this case, you probably don't need paths, you just need the indexes. Okay, so this is the on, 0, and 1. Here is the start and stop, so I can actually just copy, Control-C, Control-V, copy-paste this guy. Alright, now just to see what I'm getting, I'll put in a blank panel to the output, and when I toggle this on to true, then you'll see that it's starting to flash in between. Okay, 1 second on, 1 second off, 1 second on, 1 second off. right? Now obviously if you change these numbers, then you can make it blink much faster. So 500, whoops, for example, 500. And I'm just clicking outside to commit the changes, so you'll see the blink pattern go much, much faster. And, or you can actually do this, you know, do multiple, 6 seconds, maybe too long. Multiple of these, so you'll see the pattern basically cycle through as it goes along. Okay, so just to make it simple, I'll do 1000, 1000, and you can basically push this into your dpin 13, and you'll see the high coming up, synchronized with this obviously, to show you that it's blinking now. And if you're looking at your Arduino board, then you should see the LED on that's tied to dpin 13 start to exhibit this behavior as well. Okay, simple enough. Now, to implement a method where you can actually dynamically enter these two values, for example, we'll look at a different way of getting this as compared to just inputting it by text. So under the params input, you'll see a lot of input methods. One of the ones we use a lot is this number slider. And this number slider, if you double click on the left side where it says slider, you can actually set a lot of different parameters, including its min, max, range, numeric value, whether it's an integer or a floating point, etc., even, odd, this sort of thing. Now, while you can do this, I actually usually use a lot of different shortcuts related to this, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to make a slider that essentially allows me to adjust the range of the number that's output from, let's say, 200 or 50 milliseconds to 2000 milliseconds. So what I do is I double click on the canvas to get up the search box, and I put in the lower range, and when you'll see that it automatically changes to the number slider when you input a number like this. And I use the smaller than, and I input the higher end, or the max, which is 2000 milliseconds, like that. Enter, and it automatically makes a slider that goes from 50 to 2000 and is integer, right? Because I didn't type any decimals behind it. If you type, let's say, decimals behind it, then it makes a slider that has decimals. Okay, so I'm going to take that slider, copy it, just so I have two, one for each, right? One is the top, one is the bottom, and I am going to search for the merge component, merge a bunch of data streams. So put this into D1, this into D2, get a new panel, and you'll see this will actually pop up a third one automatically. This is because they're assuming you're going to put in more, and it will keep on growing if you put in more. So you can go D1, D2, D3, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, blah. Zoom in, and you can keep on adding or subtracting. Zoom out, and those options disappear. Alright, so that's pretty simple. So you see now I have this 713, and when I scroll the top, then it changes. When I scroll the bottom, it changes. So let's see if we do something around 1500. To enter this, if you need an exact number, you can double click on the slider portion, put in 1500, and then here we'll do 350, for example. Okay, this you can either go from here or here and just replace that 1000, 1000. So you see that on here or on the high-low, it will stay at the low for 1.5 seconds and then only go high for 0.35 or 0.35 seconds, 350 milliseconds, right? And as you kind of change this, it basically will update dynamically. Alright. While this is a slider, it's still a manual input, but you can really imagine actually having some sort of sensor and then going through that translation method to actually get to these numbers that you input, and something that will actually change or affect the blinking frequency this way. Okay, so this is just sort of a basic way to modify, tailor inputs for, let's say, lists like this. And as you can see, you can have actually more than one variable inserted in into this. And this is just to display so you can see what you're getting. All right, so this is the Blink example or tutorial, and we'll see you in the next one.